Okay, hello. This is the Node.js Community Benchmarking Workgroup meeting for September 11th. So far we have here Gareth Ellis, myself, Michael Dawson. We have Kunal Pathak, as well as Udom Power and Anil Kamur and Benedict Mueller. I think it was Kunal's mentioned that his mic isn't working, so he'll be an active listener for this particular call. We can start with our standard agenda, which we'll start with stand-ups. So myself, I did some work with Udom to help get DCEIS working. It is running nightly now, generating some stats just locally in the jobs themselves. Kind of next steps is to get that landed, and then look at starting to get the graph generation working. Udom's been doing most of that work, but I was helping him out a bit, and also spent some time with Udom on the Ansible side of things so that he can start to work on Ansible templates to configure our benchmarking machines. Turns out we needed a few more things installed for DCEIS, so it's just we've sort of hit the point where we really got to start using Ansible for those machines. Otherwise, if we ever lost one of them, it would be hard to get back to a working state. I guess Kunal's, your mic's still not working, I assume. On that assumption, I'll fill in. He's mentioned that he's worked on reviewing the PR for DCEIS, and was working on issue number 132 based on feedback that he's gotten so far. Gareth?
Yep, not too much. So I wrote up some instructions on, or some clear instructions on how to use the Jenkins job for doing the core benchmarks last week or 2 weeks ago. So I noticed your comment over the weekend, so I'll go and turn that into a document that we have in the, as people have a go, they can offer some comments on. So
yeah, I think once we get that, that's a good way to comment, and once we have that landed, then we can sort of send a notice to all the collaborators saying, here's a new tool you can use, right?
Yep, sure. Sorry, my mic wasn't muting.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I guess Udom's next up.
So I've been trying to integrate DCEIS into our benchmarking, and thanks to you, Mike, for getting it working and helping me install those tools. There are just a couple of Python packages missing on that machine, and request module. But now that after installing, seems to be running okay. We have not seen any issue, no hangups, nothing like that. So the last point I'm right now doing is try to develop those so that we can generate the data. So once I request and once it's landed, then the results will automatically get populated on our main page.
Yep.
Standing.
Yeah, basically once we land the configuration files that generate we have to do two things: land those things like with the new IDs and I forget whether they're XMLs or whatever, but the configuration files that generate the charts. Yeah. Then they will automatically be published to the Node.js org, and we just need to land one. There's one, like under the web directory, we need to update that to include the new charts as well, and then they'll show up there. The new charts, they'll show up there.
Yeah, so I'm going to write those two new scripts. One is like Acme latency, there will be no DCEIS latency and the no DC throughput. And once that is, then I'll try to ask you to review it, and we can land at that point.
Sounds good. And I guess in the meantime, we'll want to get the job, like your script landed, and I guess we could even once the changes for the benchmark IDs and stream IDs, we could even start publishing the data into the database.
Okay.
So yeah, once we get it landed, maybe I'll look at that and see how far you are with the other thing. We can sync on getting that part working.
Right. Okay. So that was first, and the second one is I got the and build infrastructure. So I'm trying to look at it and replicate on my local couple of VMs. so I can understand really well. It was just a lot of information, Mike.
Yeah.
And hopefully I can plug it in and make all the changes just for the DCIS. And I'll issue a new PR once I'm done with that.
Sounds good. Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it for now.
Okay. Sounds good.
Hey, Mike, I would have a couple of questions on this integration of the Node.js. Is this the time, or you want to take them later?
Why don't we take them after we finish the stand up? Is there any stand up you'd like to do, or?
Okay. No, I think I've just a couple of opens or the next items.
Okay, sounds good. So let's see. I'm just going to Benedict.
Yeah, I've been looking into the drop-coding benchmark. So this is issue number 138. And today I was able to upload the first version, which doesn't include TypeScript yet, which is the main thing I want to get in, but there were some issues. So I uploaded the version that contains chai as a benchmark, so some asserts and some using this BDD API.
Okay.
And also using the Esprit parser, which is based on Acorn, so that we get some coverage for general syntax analysis.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe just take a look at it. And
that's great. Yeah, I don't know if you want to spend a few minutes walking us through it today, or is it better if we all take a look and then 2 weeks from now we have it on the agenda to ask questions and that kind of stuff?
Whatever works best for you. It's not a lot, but I can walk you through. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll see at why don't we go through, and if we have time, we might as well do that, right? So.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, so I think that's everybody. Actions from last meeting, I still have to suggest some updated wording for our participation guidelines, and I still haven't done that, so sorry. I will eventually do it. I don't think we have any rollover actions, so the next part is going through issues that were tagged. And the first one there is the issue number 136, which Benedict put together in terms of questions for asking for end users. So I thought we could just go through that, get feedback, and then hopefully get to the point where either we know we need more discussion, we can take it back to GitHub, or we can pass it on and contact Tracy and the ComCom committee to see how we would get a survey on that front out. So I don't know if everybody has this open, so maybe I'll read through the questions and then we can kind of discuss a bit. So the first one was, what's your primary use case for Node, web developer tooling, standalone servers, cloud services, or others? What kind of language dialect do you use? ES5, ES6, ESNext, whatever supports the most recent Node version, TypeScript other. Do you run optimization passes on your JavaScript before you deploy it to Node? So minification, bundling, obfuscation, other. What is your preferred way to write asynchronous code? So callbacks, promises, async, await, other. What are the top 5 Node modules that you use most often? If you could choose which JavaScript language feature would be optimized next, what would it be? Using the latest Node releases as the basis. So those are a good set of questions. The first one, I'm wondering a bit, the primary use case. I wonder, there was a survey that was completed recently. I'm just wondering if we should look at the results from that survey to see if there was anything on the primary use case side of things.
You're not speaking about our survey that we run via V8.
Sorry, say that again.
So we had a survey running, the V8 survey that Adi Osmani was running. You're not talking about.
No, it wasn't that one. The foundation sent out a survey.
Okay.
And it was about a month ago to 6 weeks ago that the results were announced. I'm just thinking it would be worth double checking that to see what kind of, if they asked any questions on use cases.
That would be awesome. Do you have a link handy?
Let me see if I can find that. Hold on. Let me do a little bit of searching.
I have one here from April in 2016.
Yeah, no,
That's probably
it's 2017. Okay, here we go.
Oh, Rising Stack.
It wasn't that. That may be where they're reporting on the foundation results, but there's definitely a full result. Right. So it says the foundation just published their results. So now I'm just looking if they actually had a link to the actual results. Oh, there we go. Their relative results.
It doesn't really matter because the first graph in there is already deployment primary focus, development primary focus.
Right. So I think this is
okay.
So that's, I think, maybe the link in there to the full. Although even is that, yeah.
No, the link points to Hacker Noon, but yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's got maybe that's what I was just thinking. I may still not have the right link, but.
Okay, but we know.
We should probably look at that one and see if it cover, what it does cover or doesn't cover from that particular question at least.
Yeah, although I don't. So if you run a new survey, I think it makes sense to, even if it's a bit redundant, to still include this as the first question.
Yeah. No, that's true. No, yeah, that's a good point. So, okay.
But we should definitely, maybe if you find the original data, you can link to that so that we can already see what's in there.
Yeah, that's a good.
I'll put the Hacker Noon link inside.
Yeah, might as well put that one. We can find if there's a more detailed one, but that's. So in terms of the ES5, ES6, ES Next, I guess that's interesting for optimization at the V8 level, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then the optimization passes is related to, well, what other tools do you use, which is good.
It's not only the tools that you use, it's also different what Node sees then. So
yeah, okay.
Get to see then if you passed it through whatever minification or
right, okay.
Or whatever. So
the way there is the code actually it runs differently.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And then what's your preferred way to write? Yeah, okay. So callbacks, promises, top 5 no modules.
So there's one issue on the promises repository. About it's pretty long thread already about the performance optimizations for promises and async await in general. And last 2 weeks we had been looking into that quite a bit together with Caitlin Potter and maybe even considering some changes to the specification that would allow us to run certain cases where it's written in an asynchronous way, but the promise is already resolved immediately, so that you can almost run it as synchronous performance.
Okay.
But that's, yeah, I'm not sure how interesting this is for the benchmarking working group because this is mostly language and engine level. But it would be interesting if people are already switched to that.
Yeah, if it's something that's gonna, well, if it affects, I mean, it's interesting in the sense of if it, if it affects the main use cases and somehow changing the performance of that, something that, Node would do could affect that performance there. That would certainly matter. And then if you could choose which JavaScript language feature you could optimize next, what would it be? Yeah, okay. So those look, I mean, so I just sort of walk through them and just so I could better understand. Anybody else have comments, suggestions on those questions? Like, is there other ones people would suggest adding, or?
I think that's a good list to start with for sure.
Okay. Any other thoughts, or? I guess, what I'd suggest is maybe, if people can think about it, we should probably go back and look at the other survey just to see what was there and what wasn't, just because I'm sure there'll be, if we ask for a survey that has certain questions, we just want to know how much data the other one covered or not. And then maybe, when we meet back next time, we can agree on, hey, do we have a, if everybody can look at it and say, hey, that's complete, let's go coordinate with ComCom committee, or hey, here's some more questions to discuss. Does that make sense?
So it would be nice if someone who knows more about the Node use cases, if someone could add some more questions in that direction. Because all the questions are now motivated essentially from the engine's perspective.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. We should spend at least the next couple of weeks, hopefully everybody here thinking a bit about them and adding in other questions that make sense to them. Then we'll come back. So basically take it back to GitHub for a couple of weeks, and then we'll, at the next meeting, we'll hopefully be able to close on whether we're ready to move forward or not. Does that sound reasonable to everybody?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess welcome, Andrew. Just see that you've joined, so I want to say hi.
Hey. Hi. I'm sorry for being late. Couldn't join you any earlier.
Yeah, no problem. Welcome. So I guess just, for the other participants, Andrew's shown interest in getting involved in the benchmarking work group, and we've seen him quite active across the repo, so it's a great thing. So just as a welcome, and hope to see you going forward. So on to the next issue that we have is the status of running the Node Core benchmarks. Let's see, I think Gareth mentioned that briefly earlier. Anything else to add on that front?
The main thing is I did the, I tried to put together a set of instructions for using it. Obviously, I put together quite a bit of the interface, so it makes perfect sense to me, but I may have sort of completely missed the mark, perhaps, if other people want to take a look and think, oh, look, is the stuff missing? Is the stuff that isn't working quite as you'd expect? And then there's a PR as well for a document to try and document an easy-to-use guide, which we can then pass on to other people involved in the project if they need to go and run some of these core benchmarks, perhaps against a pull request or something of that nature.
Right, now I'm just looking at this. So the filter, so if you pull down the category, the filter is still just an ad hoc.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, each time you change the category,
yeah,
then the filter would work slightly differently, because you've got effectively the filter is the part of a file name within each category, and each category is effectively a folder of benchmarks.
Right. Is there any way, I guess the filter is just too big to be a drop-down, or that doesn't even really make sense, does it?
Well, the only way to do it, I suppose, would be is if you could chain, I'm not sure if you can do it in Jenkins, to go and say, right, well, if you've got this particular category chosen, then these are the list of valid filters, perhaps. But really, right, it will depend on, I mean, for example, if you had a HTTP request and then another filter, you may just want to filter on everything that has HTTP in the name or something like that. So I think it's probably more something that the user is going to need to make a decision on, sort of what scope of benchmarks they may want to.
Right.
To
okay. Okay. I was just exploring whether a drop down or something would make sense, but
yeah.
Okay. I guess the other thing too is, like, does it make sense? So you're gonna do the pull request to get the doc, which is good. We'll comment on that, get it landed. In the meantime, does it make any sense to reach out to, like, I'm trying to remember who was it who asked for it in the first place. Maybe you already have.
So yeah, so I mean, it was Matteo, I think Kalina, who was one of the people who was originally quite interested in it. So when we put together the first run of this, he had a go. And then I think that was around the time when the benchmarking machine was running into some issues with, or rather Jenkins, I think. And then I don't think anything really happened after that. So perhaps I think
but maybe
take another look.
Do we think there's any ongoing issue? Like you mentioned some issues. Do we think that was unrelated to the machine, or do you think there still is?
No, I think it was an unrelated issue, because it was one where Jenkins wasn't scheduling any jobs.
Okay.
So I think it might have been while you were away, because I think we started looking at this just before you went away on vacation or something. So I mean, as far as I'm aware, that issue hasn't surfaced again, or if it has, I've not noticed.
But I was thinking, like, and there was one other, and I'm not so good at remembering names, but there was another person who's quite active on the benchmarking front, who would be another person I was thinking we could reach out to sort of give it a spin, right?
Yeah, I think there's Andreas.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, I can go and tag them and see if
I'd
they all...
tag him and maybe even Brian White.
Okay.
Like, you know, we'll tag everybody at some point, but they seem to me would be good candidates to kind of tag as a early try it out, see if it helps, or if they have any comments as well. Okay.
Tag them and then see if we can get
okay, sounds good. Any other discussion on this particular issue? No? Okay. I think that's all the issues we had on the agenda for this week. So I think, Benedict, if you wanted to go back and just talk us through which issue was it? It was our PR.
So well, basically there's not a lot. But should I share my screen with?
Yeah, that would probably be even best. There is a.
How is that? Okay.
Yeah, it's up on, for me, it's the top left-hand corner, sort of a green arrow.
So you see my screen?
Yes. If I click on you, I do now.
Okay. Okay, so I just started with a simple runner, which is essentially a copy of the Obtain runner, but I removed a lot of things that we don't need and put some other stuff in there. So the runner contains some polyfill and then benchmark result, benchmark and benchmark suite class, which as I said is mostly copy and paste from Obtain, but will need some cleanup. This is also not interesting really. So you can then just create a benchmark by saying new benchmark suite, and then you pass an array of benchmarks. For Chai, I only have one benchmark in here, which is also mostly copy and paste from their test suite. So the benchmark needs a run method or run function, setup, and tear down. So what run does in this case, for example, it just, or setup, collects a list of functions using this BDD interface, which you can just execute later. So that it installs an array of these functions, and run just goes through it and invokes them. And the runner does that for a certain amount of time, and then measures the ops per second. So that's not really super exciting. For Chai, I think we need even more tests to cover that properly. So this is just what I did in an hour. I think we could just migrate their whole test suite, or the core of their test suite. I think that stresses the engine pretty well. So what was surprising to me is that this stresses proxy performance quite a lot, which is because of the way that this expect interface works. And there are a couple of other things in there that we definitely haven't optimized in V8 because we weren't aware that this is even an issue. So this is already worth defining. I just imported the full Browserify generated module. So this runs inside of Node and inside of V8 currently, but in theory it will also work on the browser. It just needs some HTML around it, and yeah, and I need to fix the remaining issues that pop up.
I guess like for something like that, it's interesting. So basically, it's a sort of duplicate model as opposed to like getting the latest Chai and seeing how it does.
Well, you don't want the latest Chai, you want a dedicated version, because otherwise different runs of the benchmark don't tell you anything.
Right, yeah, I understand you need the consistency. I also wonder though, like going forward, if they totally change their implementation.
Well, if they totally change the implementation, then they break everyone's else's packages that depend on it.
Well, not the API, but if you had the same API, but the internal was different.
Oh yeah, sure, but we can just update it. So you just copy a new version of Chai.js as long as the API is the same. It would just basically work.
Yeah, no, I'm just sort of musing the, like, I know like Sigim, the model is always go and get the latest. That causes grief in some ways for sure. So, okay.
Okay, so I made it super easy. You just have, so just concatenate it into one file in the end.
Yeah.
So you have code that runs before, or you have code that comes before. It wraps this into a function so that we don't pollute the global namespace. And post just closes the function and returns the module.
Okay.
I like the way we do get our node git clone build, kind of specify the tag. Is there a way to specify version number you want to get? So you don't have to get latest, but you get a specific release, whether it's a Chai or any other module. Is this something that can be done?
We can do that too, yeah. So it's really about this single file. I think Chai even shipped this as part of their GitHub repository. Yeah, we can just do that. So I did this similar thing for Esprit, which is Acorn-based parser. And this Esprit.js is not shipped, so you need to really clone Esprit and build it, npm install, and then extract the final browser file. But we could probably also automate that in a way that makes it easy to check different versions. But yeah, here it's a bit easier. It just contains data, which I just took the source code of latest jQuery, latest React, and some small things that a lot of other packages depend on, so Backbone and underscore. But we could also go follow that or whatever. So you just put the source code in here, and it will run as part of the test suite. This just walks through the payloads and installs a benchmark for each payload that you specify. And I guess I would do the TypeScript in a similar way, but yeah, TypeScript is a lot more complex. It's not really designed as a library, so that it takes some time to get there.
I guess for like, you probably dealt with this for Octane anyway, but like, are all the things we're likely to want to measure, like the licenses and all that, are going to just allow copying the code in?
So yeah, I want to limit it to BSD and MIT license things, and also ask obviously for permission.
Right. Okay.
Or at least inform the author that we're going to include this, as we did with Octane.
Right. Okay.
I would not like to have any GPL or other troublesome licenses in there, and it seems okay if you stick to BSD and MIT.
Yeah, I was thinking of then if there were some key ones that we thought were one of the other licenses, then the sort of installing at runtime would make more sense. If then copying is, you certainly right that you end up with like, okay, you've got something that's going to be easy to run and doesn't have any external dependencies.
Yeah, so the idea is that you can run it in a terminal. So I can just it doesn't print anything, okay, whatever. But in this, I generate one file that contains everything. So there's the run.js, which contains all the tests, and then for each test I have an individual JavaScript file that also, if you run it, then it will execute exactly on that benchmark and print the result. And if you run the main runner, then it executes all the benchmark suites that are in there. Because that makes it easy to investigate or drive performance. I guess for running it on the main infrastructure, it's sufficient to just have this run.js, and for the browser, it's sufficient to just wrap an index HTML around it. but we also want to investigate. So
yeah, no, it's good to be able to run individual ones and stuff.
okay, yeah, I guess that's
okay. That's good. And I guess that, did you put the link to that into the issue you opened? Just
yes.
might, yeah, okay, good. So people can follow through and find it. That's great.
Yes, I put it in there. I even referenced it from the initial import.
Perfect.
Which I was surprised that this works out of the box, but yeah. I'm using GitHub most of the time, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so any ideas for benchmarks? I think the hard part is really extracting the core problems, the core JavaScript problems, and getting rid of I/O and unrelated tasks. So that makes it hard, for example, to get a Webpack benchmark, because Webpack itself doesn't even do a lot. It mostly invokes Babel, or it parses files, or it loads files. So what we really want here is, or what I would like to get out of this is something where really the time-consuming CPU-driven tasks are captured well, like the compiler task, the actual parsing of the strings, the code generation, and stuff like that. You see what? Okay.
Okay. So I guess any other issues people want to bring up or discuss this week? I think if not, I think for the next week it's still.
Hi, Mike.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So I had two issues I wanted to see that.
Right.
Node DC integration into the node benchmarking. And I wanted to see if Uttam has any feedback that how in future we can make it easier, or it was pretty easy already. So we wanted to see if process is much easier for the benchmark to be added in future.
Sounds good.
And the other one I wanted to see at the Node Interactive, Uttam and I will be there, and we wanted to see if on Friday there is an interest to meet 1 or 2 hours, because there's a community day there, the Friday, I assume.
Yep.
And we do feel that the node benchmarking is one of the important areas to further creativity, pickup, or different thing if you see in the node.
Yeah, I haven't seen too much going on the scheduling for that yet, but that's a good suggestion. I'm just looking at.
We are open to meet if more people are available, even on the regular working days, but that's probably much harder. We could, to increase the awareness and more participation, we could put little bit. I mean, I know the GitHub has a couple of areas, but we could give more concrete examples to contribute and some discussion on it. Even
right,
if it is
so
1 hour, it may help to connect with more contributor. And face-to-face thing sticks. I know on the phone, etc., is great, but opportunity.
Yeah, the Collaborator Summit is the 6th and the 7th. And I don't see anything related to the schedule yet, but I can chime in there saying, we'd like to have a 1 or 2 hour session on benchmarking as part of this. That's what you're suggesting, I think, right?
And feedback, I missed the part of the survey part you guys were collecting. Is that included? Like, how easy is it?
No, so this year we were trying to collect the data from the developers. Use it, what are the different use cases? Or what is those kind of things. Okay. So there is an issue open. I'll show you that issue.
Yeah, it's more around getting information that would help optimize as opposed to the bench, running the benchmark or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think my thinking, I from the Java and being IBM there, you have pretty good experience of IBM JDK for their own product. I think there is a lot of improvement to make the node benchmarking almost essential. The next level. I know enterprises picking it up, a more robust testing and the benchmark infrastructure path we are on of the growth.
Right. I mean, that's been a different thing than we've been discussing. We should probably open an issue to start the discussion on that front too. You're saying more that like the enterprises will want to use a benchmark to be able to measure like how effective their hardware is working for them.
No, I think what you find that anytime like JDK 9 is going, we know there are at least how the customer cases which have been built up over the years for compatibility and for different reasons. So similar way, we could see that where the node testing infrastructure currently is, what are the critical customer use cases and different things we need to add to make it at par with Java and .NET with respect to enterprise testing of such runtimes.
Right. So I guess I'm just trying to understand what would be the next concrete step we should plan out on that. You know, we currently have our like, here's the use cases we want to cover. Here's benchmarks that we want to cover them. You know, I could interpret what you're saying as maybe we should be looking to add more things to the use cases. Or maybe it's just a different thing. Maybe you're suggesting we should look at the Java world to see what kind of benchmarking they have to see, you know, if that gives us inspiration for other things we should be doing.
Plus, we could see like what is the traction so far based on the use cases. I think a couple of we contributed, Microsoft contributing. So we could see how can we encourage that more, where more communities participating to add the benchmarking case.
Right, like how do we, yeah, okay, how do we get to a bigger group of people coming to these meetings or just participating in contributing benchmarks?
Yes, and we know that the...
Sorry,
How to
encourage it, yeah.
Sorry, we didn't hear you for the last minute or two.
I was just going to say that how to make it, because even like Node.js have been pretty complex piece, even though it's a reasonable simple case. An individual contributor, they probably wanted to do something in a month or 2 months, they can add and contribute. So I think what we really need is some people can start adding things to it. Because I think current use cases have been there for at least 1 year and not much traction, right?
Yeah, no, true. We don't have a whole bunch of people jumping up and starting to write things for us. No.
So I'm wondering if we should create a little bit more straw man and then let people areas. Hey, can you create this?
You are gonna go again.
Yeah. Go ahead. Was there a comment or something?
You were gone again. I could not hear you anymore.
Yeah, I think you were coming and going.
Yeah.
But I think what you said was, should we put together a framework and then encourage people to use that? Is that?
Mike, remember, I think a couple of weeks ago, a couple of meetings ago, we did talk about that. Okay, we are using these workloads. The core benchmarks, there's Acme, there's a Node.js, and maybe a couple more use cases. It's good for us to do benchmarking to know the Node.js core performance day to day. But how we were also, I think, briefly talked about how someone else, a user, can use this for their benefit, for evaluating the machines, environment, so something like that.
Right.
And I believe I was going to open an issue about it, probably I forget. But I think it's a good idea to just kind of capture the essence of this, what we're talking about, and maybe later.
Yeah, I think definitely opening an issue so that people can sort of read about it, understand the concept, and, you know, have some discussion there. And then, you know, the next meeting we can talk about it if there's more stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, again, what you said. So if someone does download the Acme or the Node.js or anything else new comes along, because they want to evaluate infrastructure, Probably not. And can they understand very basic way the baseline of the data and what the performance mean on that machine and things like that.
Right. Yeah,
so
that's
if you can provide as an expert.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a whole area of work that other communities do have that we don't. So yeah, if you guys can help push that by starting the discussion, that's probably good.
Yeah, I think I'll open an issue to capture that.
Yeah.
Okay, and so there were the two things I know you wanted to cover. That was one. The other one was talking about getting something at Node Summit. So I was just I was just going to put the comment that says, I don't see a discussion on the agenda for the summit yet, but Anil from Intel was suggesting, and I agree, it would be good to have 1 to 2 hours to discuss benchmarking. Does that sound good? That's what I was going to paste into. It's issue 44 in Summit. So I think if anywhere we're going to start discussing the schedule, that'll be it. So does that cover off what you were hoping for us to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So there we go, posted. And we'll keep an eye on the discussion there. But yeah, I think definitely getting some time in those 2 days to have interested people get together. We can talk about what we're doing and have a discussion face-to-face is good. Okay, any other issues? I'd say at this point, let's give people on the call a minute or two if they have questions or anything like that. I see 4 viewers right now. So if you do have a question, just paste it into the original issue for the meeting. And we'll give you a minute or two to do that before we close out. Going to get back to that main issue while we wait. I don't know what actually be interesting to ask who's all going to be at Node Interactive this year. I think at Udom and Anil, you mentioned you were going to be there.
Yeah.
I don't know, Andrew or Benedict.
By the way, I'm normally called Ruben, even though English-speaking people are calling me Andrew. I'm not really sure yet. I don't think so right now. But I still try to make it happen.
Okay. You're probably aware, but there is potential funding right through the foundation for travel and stuff. Benedict, I don't know. Are you planning to go to Node Interactive?
No, I'm going to NodeConf EU later.
Okay.
We have Franziska and Peter from my team coming.
Okay.
And I think they're both speakers even, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. And Gareth?
Nope, unfortunately not.
No. Okay. I know it is a long way to go. It's sort of I don't know if Vancouver is probably further for you guys even than the East Coast. So
yes.
Yeah. Okay. The one thing just as an aside, the one thing I did notice, it's actually Canadian long weekend that the conference runs into, which is kind of interesting. But anyway. Sorry, Canadian Thanksgiving, but don't see any questions in the meeting issues. So I think we're at the end. So we'll talk to you all in a couple weeks.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for your time. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.